All right, let's see if that worked. Looking good. All right. How's it going, everyone? So I wanted to start a series where just call it Let's Code, and I feel like I am going to focus mainly on remaking Mario Party minigames. Some of my favorites. I mean, back in the day of my childhood, I loved playing Mario Party games, and the one that comes to mind first that I really want to work on is Trace Race. I have in my spare time worked on it a bit, but I figured I'd go through the entire process with you guys, just kind of document the entire process, and also maybe you guys will learn something, and maybe you guys can help me out and learn something as well. So we'll go from there. The first thing I already did, I opened up Unity, and I am using version 2019 .4.12 F1. I've just had pretty good experience with this version. So you can see I already got it open. I connected to GitHub as well, just so I have a repository just in case anything happens. I don't want to lose the work and restart from scratch, which I can show you here. And I plan on going through majority of the process, so creating small art assets using free software such as like MS Paint or 3D Paint or A Sprite. Uh, sorry, can't remember what the other one is offhand. Pisco. That's the other one. Pisco. Use that one and Blender if I do any 3D modeling. For audio, I'll do Audacity, Bosca Coil, probably just record my voice a lot. Cakewalk if I wanted to really get fancy. So those are kind of the items that I'll be using. For visual stuff, I can also use GIMP. Since that's free, it's the equivalent of Photoshop, but free. And what other small techniques I can use? Google Docs, Google Slides, things like that. They have options that work really well when you're creating visuals, and it's free. Might as well use it, right? All right, so I am going to start off by creating a small placeholder asset. I'll just go to Paint. I like using Paint 3D because you can do transparencies in here, which is pretty nice. First thing I'm going to do is just create a 1 by 1 pixel. And the reason I do that is because I like to have just a random placeholder. I can easily size up and down. I can color it however I want. Easy for placeholders. So then I just do this, save it out, image. And for now, I will go straight to my game project. So I have it saved in my GitHub projects and Mario Party minigames. Go through, go into my assets folder. So I can create folders inside of Unity, or you can create them here. I'm just going to create a new one. I am going to call this place folders. And I'll just call this 1 by 1 pixel. Kind of just keep things clean and relevant. So hopefully that should be inside of here now. Once it loads up, placeholder, and yep, we got a 1 by 1 pixel. And we can drag it into our hierarchy over here, our model tree, or game project tree, whatever you want to call it. And I am, just click on it, and you can't see it. So a few things you can do. If you click on it inside of your project folders, you get options over here. So I'm just going to say this is pixels per unit, 1 pixel per unit, because that's what it is. Reply or apply it. And you can see now you can actually see it. It's much larger. So all I did was say, hey, pixels per unit. If you had, let's say 10 pixels per unit, they would split up that 1 by 1 pixel into 10 sections and try to fit it in there. In this case, this is 1 pixel, so they say, or 1 pixel per unit. So one Unity unit is now considered a pixel for this picture. So that's all I'm using it for. Which one? There's a lot. I'm going to be doing Trace Race. Are you familiar with that one? I believe, initially in Mario Party 4. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just go to the images real quick. It's this guy here where you get a line and each person's holding a crayon and you have to trace over the line using analog controls and get the most accuracy and make it to the end. And thanks for joining in, Jason. Nice to see you here. So I have a few plans of attack for this. I already pretty much made this in my own spare time, but I'm restarting from scratch to kind of document the entire process of what I went through. So I guess I can kind of document my plan of attack. So I'll open up Notepad. And so, plan of attack. So, step 1. Anytime, I just enjoy it. Cool. Well, I'm glad you're here. I appreciate it. So, plan of attack. Step 1. We need to be able to have the initial line. There's a few ways that we can go about doing this. Trace Race is interesting. Are you going to do any of the RNG heavy games like the Bowser Balloon one? I am considering doing that as well because I feel like that'd actually be pretty simple. So that might be able to fit all in one stream. This particular project I know is going to be a couple streams long, just due to how big it is. And I'm also going to do like the local multiplayer aspects of it as well. So I'm going to be showing how to set up multiple local controllers using the Unity user input system. So first step in our plan of attack, get initial line. Our second step is how to actually draw a line inside of Unity real time. So draw a line real time in Unity. There we go. And after that, it starts breaking down into the simpler concepts. So once you draw a line, how do you check your accuracy? So we need to figure out how to check accuracy of drawn line. And this one here, I had a few concepts, and one really easy concept that I plan on showing is kind of what I'm going to go for. It's probably not the most efficient, but for simplicity's sakes, it's what I'm going to be using. Then once we know how to check the accuracy of a drawn line, then we have to actually get user input. User input. After we do user inputs, then we need to do the local user input. So, local multiplayer input. After that, we'll just dress it up with assets. So the ooh la arts assets. And of course, they're not going to be fantastic art sets or anything like that, but it's going to be enough to make it look close to the game, at least resemble something similar, and that's the idea behind it. All right, so now that we have the plan of attack, get initial line. There are a few methods of doing this. We could use a line renderer and randomly generate a line across the screen. That way is probably the most robust system that you could do. Or in the case that I'm going to do, just because I like simplicity, I am going to stay inside of Paint 3D. I'm going to open up my canvas size and width, let's just go like 1,000. And then for the height, we'll go 200 maybe. That looks good. So I am just going to draw a line. So that's probably good. Actually, I'll do shapes. I'll start off with a solid straight line. I'm just holding shift down, left clicking and dragging. I'm sure most of you know how to do this. So we'll shrink this down, give the player a nice starting straight line so they get used to the controls. And then I am going to add a squiggly line. And I mean, this isn't going to look beautiful or perfect by any means. Paint 3D, the 3D software we all need. Exactly. Surprisingly, I use this quite a lot, especially when I'm doing title cards and stuff for YouTube, or if I need like a weird transparency object inside of Unity. It's so useful for that. And also when I do editing in videos, it's pretty nice because you can slap random transparent objects inside of the game or in the video, and boom, there you go. So this has control points. I'm going to smooth it out. And it's going to curve down first. It just takes a little bit of tweaking. There we go. And then I just bring this down here. And now we have the initial curve. And you can tell if I zoom in, it doesn't line up or anything, but it's close enough for what we need. And now I just start another line here, and then I drag it across, and now we have a couple squiggles. And I'm just going to try to match the curve a little bit. We'll do like a small one here. And let's do something a little crazy. I'm going to make this just a little bit larger, because it looks like I'm running out of room already. So let's go 1,500 for the length. Just going to grab this and I'm going to move it over. One of the nice things about using this program to do this, because you can easily move everything around however you need, instead of doing a line renderer where you have to manually input object or input line lengths and everything like that for the segments. Or I'm sure there's probably some kind of formula out there to create all of the lines, use a sine wave and everything along those lines, but I'm not going to go that deep into it. This is simple, easy, quick and dirty way of doing everything. It's kind of like a vector program for rasters. Oh, okay. There's probably a pretty good vector program out there to do this on, honestly, but I don't think I've ever done that. I know there's like voxel programs too, but I mainly stick with the simple 2D art and then some sprite objects, and then also mainly 3D modeling. That's kind of was my bread and butter when I was younger, and it kind of still is because I do a lot of it for my industrial design career. So let's do a straight line here. I'll just zoom on in. Whoosh. Do another little straight line just to give the player a little respite from all the crazy jaggedy lines. But now, boom, we're going to be throwing the player off with a nice square object. Do a nice straight line there. Do I have enough room? I want to do a loop-de-loop as well. Here we go. Nice flat line. So how'd you end up doing, Jason, inside of the jam? What was your overall rating? Ours, by the way, was 338th for overall, which I'm actually quite pleased with, mainly because our team spent pretty much no time working on it. I know I spent about 9 hours total working on the overall project. So I thought it turned out pretty nice in getting that place. So now I'm just building a loop. It's not going to look pretty by any imagination. So there we go. I'm sure I could use one of the other multi curve tools, but I'll just stick with this. Get it close enough. I got 196 overall. I was a bit disappointed at first, and then I realized there was over 1,000 entries, so I didn't do as bad as I initially thought. No, that's pretty dang good, man. Congratulations on that. Yeah, I know a lot of people were pretty upset in the Discord. A lot of this was rigged and blah blah blah, but game jams really aren't about winning, unless you're like super competitive. For me, it's more about just having fun doing it. I got to enjoy talking to my teammates and also the people in the Discord. I learned a lot from everyone, and then hopefully I dropped some nuggets of wisdom as well, hopefully. All right, so yeah, that looks like a kindergartner drew that, but that's perfectly fine. We're going to be acting like we're tracing over it with a crayon anyways. Okay, so I am going to do another straight line. We'll make this one a little bit longer. And if I really want to be crazy with this, I could just crop out another one of these. I'll just Control C and then do a little lineup. I'll shrink it. Add one more line and bada bing, bada boom. There we go. We have our initial path. Yeah, maybe there was some sabotage. I don't doubt that, but game jams are for the learning experience to get something done. Very true. This was our seventh one that I've been in, and they're all a different beast, to be honest. Sometimes they're very small and like very friendly community. Sometimes they're very large and people are aggressive and competitive. But at the end of the day, I like finding the people that are there just for fun, and we can usually just kind of hang out, chat, help each other with random code problems or whatever. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the help section in the Blackthorn Prod Discord for a while, just seeing if I could help anyone out or whatever. Maybe if there was a prize involved, I would have felt different about it, but it was all for fun. Very true. And that's kind of what a lot of these are. I mean, I've seen some that have gone like for thousands of dollars or whatever, some kind of big crazy game jam that's promoting a new game engine. But for me, even with those, I'd rather not be pressured. I do this as a hobby, and sometimes I have a lot of free time to work on it, and other weeks I get like 30 minutes or an hour a day to work on it. So kind of have to pick my poison, and I'd rather spend time with my family or working on whatever else needs to get done other than just a hobby. So we're going to call this, you know what? That is not a placeholder. That is going to be, actually, we'll call it a placeholder. We might spruce it up later. We'll call this the trace path, and we'll call it 1 because after you do one setup of this and get the player controllers in, you can technically make as many trace paths as you want, set up the accuracy detection for each path, Bada bing, bada boom, you're going to be done. And you can easily just keep building on top of this and make multiple paths. The prize was being showcased on Blackthorn Prod. People get crazy over YouTube hype. Oh, well, that's more like exposure, not a prize. I kind of agree with both of you. Being shown on there could technically help you grow your channel if you really wanted to do it that way. And also, yeah, people just get hyped over anything that has potential prize elements to it. So, trace path 1, save. I am super proud of that loop. Look at that. You know what? I'm going to do this. And then do a little control C, a little control V. And then also a little smiley face. Oh, that's not smiling. Big old smiley face. There we go. Just to remember, have yourself a good time. All right, so it should be saved. Yes, there we go. Save. Replace that. Now when we bust open Unity, we should have this in here. I am going to... I made this 200 pixels tall, so I'm going to make this pixels per unit. I'm going to go off of the smallest measurement just to kind of clear things up a bit. Smack this in here. And now you can see our 1x1 pixel is covering up part of the screen. I'm going to cover or change the color of this just to a random color. And one thing that you guys may notice is my game screen is 16:9 ratio. That's typically what I work in. You can really use anything, but I just kind of like the 16:9. So I'm going to go back to my scene. And now I'm going to kind of just start sizing everything the way it needs to be. Just do a rough, something like this. About full size would probably be good there. And there we go. We have a smiley face. Hi. Okay. So one thing that I like to check on this is since Trace Race has 4 players, or should have 4 players, I just want to make a couple copies of these. And then I'll grab 3 of them, drag them down, and then grab 2, drag down, and then this one, drag down. It's okay. Now I'll grab all 4 of them and I'm going to see if they will fit inside of the screen. And they barely just fit. So I will rescale them to something like 2.2. Actually, I'll leave it lengthwise. I will leave it to 2.6 just to make sure it's the right height, right width. And then for the heights, I will go 2.2. And that gives me a little more room to do borders and work with the screen. Just recreating Mario Party games, or is there more you want to expand on? Eventually, I would like to expand on top of this, but for right now, I've been kind of hooked on redoing the Mario Party stuff, just because, for me, childhood memory, nostalgia, all that good stuff. But eventually, if people have suggestions of what they would want to see, or try to watch me accomplish something, then I'm more than willing to try it out. Because we're all here just to try to learn and have a little bit of fun. So right now I'm just kind of moving things together just to see if the spacing is going to turn out right. Eventually this will be spaced out evenly all the way across. That'll be important when we're setting up our accuracy detection and when we do our character placements, things along those lines. It will really help out balancing those portions of the game design. And I honestly don't, right now, I don't know how long I'll do the stream for on these Saturdays. This is one of the days that I have the most amount of time. So I might actually move the time up earlier on Saturday to start streaming. So I can kind of have a little bit more time if I need it. And also that way I'm not dead tired because right now it's only 9:30, but once it hits like 10:30, 11 o'clock, then I start getting really tired, burnt out. So I would like to move a little earlier in the day on those days. That way I can actually be alive and functioning. So we have our basic paths in here. So we'll go back to our plan of attack, get initial line. We are done with that. Boom. Okay. So draw a line real time in Unity. So I have to admit, I didn't learn this technique on my own, but I did find a YouTube channel who I believe they call like 1 minute Unity tutorials. So I'll just pull it up just so we have reference of where I learned it from, how I got the code. But it's actually pretty simple, and I actually tweaked it a bit to make it work for this game. So 1 minute, what should I call that? What was it? 1 minute, draw a line, Unity. Let's see if it pops up. Draw in Unity in 60 seconds. This was by 1 minute Unity, and I'm gonna turn the sound off. He does draw all that good stuff. I'm not gonna let the video play too much because I think it goes copyright strikes. But I just wanted to give proper credit to where I got this code from. 1 minute Unity, check him out. He has some pretty cool tutorials and all that good stuff, so definitely check him out. 151. He might spend some of his time promoting his channel or whatever, so I'll let him slide on that one. But yeah, he I think he's done like grappling hooks and things along those lines, and it's so cool because he does it truncated in a minute. He doesn't really care about, prolonging a video to 30 minutes, so you have to sit there through all the slog of, oh, here's a advertisement, or here's a self promotion, blah blah blah. He gets it in, gets out, shows you how to do it, and then boom, he's done. So that's why I like his stuff. He lives today. So dramatic. Bum bum boom. All right, so we got the path. What it was the next one? Draw a line real time in Unity. So like I said, got a lot of code from him, and just in case if I screwed up, I did post or copied what I had from my previous project and saved it in a notepad so I can reference it and actually remember and know how I did it. So I'll kind of walk through what this was doing, and then we'll try to replicate it and go from there. So at first, it's just using all the typical Unity collections and Unity engine. I called the class drawLine, or the script drawLine, however you want to preface that. Serialized field, private game object brush. So what I need to do is create a prefab that is a brush, and that brush will have a line renderer attached to it, and we'll have to grab that component eventually to be able to use it in our script. This here, private int current player num. I don't know if you guys can see it. I could probably zoom in if need be. If you have a hard time seeing the code, just let me know, okay? But anyways, private int current player num. So this will become important when we do our local multiplayer. It's going to check for what the current player number is, and it'll assign that player whatever slot that it is. We have a private line renderer, current line, or current LR, just to stand for line renderer. This is where we're going to store our component. We have a private vector2 of last position. So this will kind of be used as a check to see if the object's moved. If it has, then it'll run some more code and then set the last position to current position type thing. Private string tag to check. So this was more along the lines of the multiplayer functionality, so that's why that's in here. We have on the private void awake, we have the master script dot num of players plus plus. That's just incrementing the number of players in the master script. So master script is what I always call my main, like, do not destroy on load script type object. It maintains all relevant information, number of players, health, things along those lines. But in this case, this is going to hold number of players, accuracy of the players more than likely, and probably a few other elements. I'm not quite sure yet at this point. Current player num equals master script dot num of players. Pretty self-explanatory. Brush equals game object dot find game object with a brush. So I believe the way that I ended up doing this initially was I had my brush inside of my model tree with a tag. I found it, stored it, and then when I created an instance of it later on in the script, game object brush instance equals instantiate brush. So I'm going to end up slightly changing that. I'm going to store a prefab and I'm going to instantiate that prefab. So it's going to be a little different there just to clean up the code. And then I just debugged this part of the code, see what the number of players is, just to let me know if the code was working right. Inside of the private void start, we set the player position. So what it does is just check what number for that player was assigned. And according to that number, it finds the game object for the position to go to. Because I'll just use a empty game object and I'll use that to set positions. And that will move the object or that current player to the appropriate position. And then we have the create brush. And again, that's kind of what I was showing earlier. Create brush, all that does is instantiate the brush. Grab the component for that current line renderer. It gets the mouse position. Well, actually, it's not mouse position. It's going to be the game object position. The reason this is mouse position was in the original video from the 1 minute Unity, he's doing it based off of the mouse position, which we could do here, but I'm going to use gamepad controls to get that authentic feel. So this variable will change. So then it gets the current line renderer. It sets the position of the first index. It sets it to the mouse position. And then it gets the second index or a second position of the line renderer and then sets it to the mouse position. And that's just to make the very first point or line segment of the line renderer. And now, if we go back up here, on update, we're going to be doing our draw method. The draw method is going to take another vector2 mouse position, which again, this is going to be called game object position. It's going to change this variable. And so if the mouse position does not equal the last position, we're going to create a new point. and it's going to be the current mouse position. And then the last position equals whatever the mouse position was. And when I say mouse position, remember it's just a game object position. And where this add point, this is actually a script. So add point is returning a vector2, and it's called point position. So inside of that code, we need to increment the position count of the line renderer. So that's just creating a new segment. And we want to create a new integer, which will just be the position index. Set it to the current line renderer position count -1. And now we can create the current line renderer set position and use the position index and the point position. Hopefully this kind of makes sense once we get into it and show how it works. And then down here, private void on trigger. So this is just when the game was to start. I was going to use an accuracy check, and the accuracy check is based off of empty game objects with colliders on them, and it's just checking if the object goes through it. And if the object goes through, it increments the score, and it sets the object false. And that's how I check the accuracy. So with all that being said, we should actually try to actually make this game work, right? So I'm going to move that off to the side. And I know right off the bat, I need to make a empty object. I'm going to call this brush, because I need something with a line renderer on it. And brush. I'm going to add the component. Here we go. So we'll call this a line renderer. So now you don't really see anything. Nothing's happening, which is fine. You can do, if you want to check how it works, you can use these positions down here, and you can change this around. And I believe if you do, 3, you can have multiple segments. And I think it uses a material. Yep, has no material added. So we'll just, do a default material. And you might not be able to see it, so we'll hide all of this stuff. That right there is actually the line render, and it's based off of these positions. So you can see if I move this around, that's what the line render actually is. So move this back to like 1. I totally repressed all that code explanation in my tiny brain. That's the beauty of the internet. If you completely forget everything, you can just go back in, dive into it, and someone's already figured out your problem and documented it. Most likely, at least. So I always use Google, and then I always type in, I'm a code monkey brain that barely knows how to function, and I need help with, user input, derp Unity. So hopefully this brief explanation through all of that kind of makes sense. And seeing that this line render isn't following the game object, you think it would, but it doesn't. It's based off of these indexes here, which is why when we create the line render component, the first position, or this 0 index, we wanted the current position of that object. So in this case, our game object is, let's say it's 2 by 2. I always make the Z 0 when I'm doing 2D stuff. So 2, 2. So if I move this here to 2 and then 2, initial point is here. Second index, let's make it over 4. Go up 2. So now that was if you moved over to the X coordinate 4 and then Y coordinate 2 would be right here. And then if you went back down all the way to X coordinate 1, Y coordinate 0. Line render actually has some pretty cool features to it. You can kind of dig around yourself to figure what's going on. There's a few things you can change on it. You can do the materials. So we'll eventually create our own materials to make it look like a crayon effect. We'll probably figure that one out together. So that'll be interesting. You can have the cast shadows, which we don't need that. So we'll turn that off. And you can say what sorting layer to have it on. I'm going to create a new sorting layer because I want this to always be on top of everything else. At least the tracing pattern. So I'll call this the trace path. So now when I go back to the brush, I go down here to the sorting layer. I'm going to call that the trace path. So now, as long as the objects are on the default, we'll turn all this stuff back on. Once it's actually rendered in game, it should be on top. Should. Doesn't guarantee that it is, because I could be wrong. And then you can look at the default material here if you really want to, but we're going to be changing that, so just dig through the options. There's plenty of things you can do. I'm going to revert this back to 0. And that should be good for this guy. For now. Since this is going to be a prefab, I'm going to create a prefab folder. And I'm going to try to do this like as professionally as possible. I'm not a professional by any means. I'm just a hobbyist. But I like to try to keep things organized. I'm going to have a script folder. I'm going to have a prefab folder. Then you can see like a placeholder folder. And then I'm going to do like final asset folders just to keep things organized. So this will be our, what was this? The prefabs. And to create a prefab, the way that I always do it, I just drag the object down into my folder that I want to store it. And this is called my brush. So that should be good. Now I can delete it out of my model tree. We have everything here. And I'm actually, just to keep things a little cleaner and we see what's going on, I'm going to set this back down to 0, 0. Everything should be good there. And I'm going to set my player object, which I will rename this player. And, I think I will also put a empty object on this. And this is where I want the brush to be held. So I'm going to call this the brush holder. That way I can easily adjust where the brush point is going to be located. So if I want it to be in front of my player, I'll just drag it here. So when I'm drawing, it should be right about here. And the reason I'm doing this is when it gets to the point when I'm bringing in the art assets, I'll have like a crayon art asset, and then I want the point to be at the very tip of that crayon. And it'll be a lot easier to adjust it just using this. So that's the reason I'm doing it. All right. So now we have a cube, we have our brush holder, and then we have a brush. So now I think it is time to, actually start writing code. Since the stream is called Let's Code, let's actually do that, huh? So I'm going to call this draw line, kind of like what I did with the other one. And I'm going to create my folder, and I'm going to call this scripts if it fills out correctly. There we go. And open it up. Depending on how Visual Studio is feeling, it might take a hot minute, but we should be good. So for the people who are watching, is this something that you are actually interested in seeing go further? Because I kind of want to be able to go from the very beginning of the project all the way to the end, or are you more focused or interested in just the coding aspects? Because I could skip over doing like art assets and things because those might be boring. I don't know. I'll try to make it interesting, but in this case, I kind of would like to see what kind of feedback I could get from this. I always like to try to improve whatever I do, so whatever you have, let me know. All right, so I am going to Omega Falcon. Hey, Omega. It's all interesting to me. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I'm going to try to make sure I show everything on screen. Uh, Definitely towards like end of streams, I'll kind of cut down on what I'm doing and just kind of ease out of it so we get to a good stopping point and we don't like break it up too much where people get confused if they're actually trying to use this as like a tutorial. It's not the main intent, but hopefully if someone really wants to use it, they can. So I have my notepad code opened up on the side just so I don't screw up horribly bad doing this. So I am going to do a serialized field here. And serialized field, all that's doing is making it show so the object appears inside of the inspector on that specific script. And I want this to be a game object. Things about serialized fields, they need to be private objects. And we're going to call this a game object. And I want this to be my brush. And again, I'm not professional by any means. I've never done legitimate classes or anything like that on here. This is all self-taught coding. So nomenclature might be a little wrong. I know some people do like an underscore. I know some people don't use capitals at all. Sometimes I'll go like brush instance with a capital on the second word. Things along those lines. So if I'm driving you crazy with the way I'm doing this stuff, I'm by no means a professional, so take it with a grain of salt. And I'm going to skip over doing like the multiplayer side of things for right now because it's technically not needed yet. And we just want to make sure we can get the line renderer drawing on the screen and make that part good enough. So with that being said, got the private game object brush, and I want a private line renderer. And you technically don't have to put private in front of that, I believe. I think you can just call I want a line renderer. Yeah, so you could do that if you really wanted to. I like specifying what these objects are because there's a private, public, serialized field, private, a few other ones. So I like to stick with private. And I am going to call this my current line renderer because we need to eventually grab that component. And you know what? I can even code the stuff or comment the stuff out. And from what I can tell, it doesn't look like it's easy to see the coding aspect of things. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. and hopefully it makes it easier to see the code. I can always adjust as needed. So I'm going to comment everything out, try to make it as clean and professional and understandable as possible. So this will be used to get component. Ignore my horrible spelling. Used to get component of current game object. And I am going to say used to instantiate prefab brush for each player. And you can even set this up so your prefab has multiple materials that it can call. That way, if you have a player that is green, it'll be like a green material. If you have a player that's red, you can have a red material attached to it. Bada bing, bada boom. You're done with creating your brushes at that point. So we have the private object, we have a current line renderer, and we also need our last position check. So that is going to be a private. This is a vector 2 because this isn't 2D. If you had a 3D game, you'd use this vector 3 if you really wanted to. So I'm going to call this last POS position. That's all that stands for. And we're going to be using this used to check against object's current position. Save that out. Agreed. If you can move chat, that would be helpful. Ah, perfect. Thanks for the heads up on that. I'll just slap it over here in the corner. That should be pretty good. Didn't even realize that was in the way. Okay, so we have the last position. And I know there was a few other variables that I created. Those are mainly just for the multiplayer aspect. And I'm not going to be using that right now. Again, I just want to get the line drawn. And that's my goal for this stream is I want to at least be able to get the user inputs to control one player and also to be able to draw a line on top of the trace path. I'm going to split this stream up into however many series it needs to be to get this completely done, but that's my goal for this video. Much better. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, currently, the way that I used to do this specific project, I would have the game object inside of my scene, and then I would create store that inside of my brush variable. But in this case, I'm actually going to instantiate the object and then use that object to do whatever I need. So with that being said, I think I can get away with moving on to my private start here. And I had a set player position and a create brush. So since I'm not worried about the player stuff yet, I'm going to go straight into doing the create brush. So let's create a new method or function, whatever name you want to use for creating a new block of code. I'm going to make this a private, and I'm going to call it create brush. And I forgot to make it a void. It doesn't need to return anything. At least I don't think it does. Yeah, we're not returning anything for this, so this should work. And then here we go, and I'm a fool. I need to get rid of that. There we go. So now we have the new function at least started. What I want to do is instantiate my brush object. So I'm going to store a game object variable, and I want this to be my instance. So I'm just going to call it my brush instance equals. I'm going to instantiate, if I know how to spell instantiate, and I want it to be my brush object. This is where the serialized field comes into play, because I'm going to be storing my, up here, I'm going to be storing my game object prefab inside of this object. And then down here, I instantiate that object. And it's going to be at the position of my current game object, if that makes sense. All right, so what we want to do is grab the line renderer from the brush that we just instantiated. Oh, wow. Current line renderer equals the brush instance. And I'm going to get the component. And it needs to be the line renderer. Don't forget your parentheses around it. Close it off. Now that we did that, we need to start drawing our segments, the index of our segments of the line renderer. So the way that we do that, we're just going to create a temporary variable. It's going to be a vector2, and we're going to call this the game, or we'll call this player position for player position. I don't know if I've used that anywhere else. I didn't. Okay. And I'm going to put that equal to the current transform.position. Transform.position. So whatever this script is attached to, that's going to be the transform.position that we use to store in this vector. So that's why that empty object that I created inside of the Unity model tree over here, the brush holder, that's why this is important, because the script will be attached to this. So whenever the object is created, it'll spawn here, and that's where the line renderer will start producing the lines. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'll go back over here. We have the transform.position, and I want to make the current line renderers set position. So you know what? We'll even look at the tool tips to make a little more sense of this stuff. Set position is set the position of a vertex in the line. And if we look at the top line of it, the void line renderer.setPosition, there's an integer of the index and then a vector3 position. In this case, we can get away with vector2s because we're in a 2D environment. But the index starts at 0. That would be the first segment of the line. And then every time you increment that index is going to be the new segment of your line, and it's going to be whatever position that you set it to. A line segment has a initial point, and then the line end of the position also is an index. So 0 and 1. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. We're going to be setting the current line renderer's set position, and we need to do the first index, which is 0, and then we want to do the position of the game object. So we stored that as our player position. I am just going to copy this, and all I did for like a little keyboard shortcut is if you hit the end key on your keyboard, hold shift and hit home, you'll highlight that entire row. I just use Control C. and then paste it down here. So now I want the end of that line segment to be the same position. So now you just have a little dot that's created. And I'm going to comment how all this code as well. So this is just instantiating brush object at current or at position of attached game object. Hopefully that makes sense. Current line and renderer equals brush instance. So all we're doing is storing the line renderer of our current object or the instantiated object. So store line renderer component in from instantiated prefab object. Alrighty. So we got that. And that's all we needed for the create the brush. So create brush is actually going to be placed under our start function because we only need this to happen once. Create brush, all you have to do is type out the name of your function, close it off, and you should be good for that. So interestingly enough, we could try this out, see what happens. So I'm going to place my brush holder or my draw line script onto my brush holder. And I'm just going to click and drag. You can also do a add component and type in draw line and find it that way. But sometimes clicking and dragging is just easier. For the brush object, I am going to store my brush here. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, that's done. I'm going to hide all this other stuff just for now. And when we run our script or run the game, let's see what happens. It looks like a whole lot of nothing's happening, right? So line render, set position, index out of bounds. Okay. Index out of bounds. Okay, that's probably because we didn't create any other points yet, which is fine. Here we go. Just checking my notepad over here just to see if I missed anything. But I think what I want to do is create my next portion of code. Oh, that's just my plan of attack. We don't need that. We're going to create our new function, and this one is going to be called add point because we want to be able to add points onto our line segment, which is how it's going to be drawing. That's all that's referring to. So this is going to be another private void, and this is going to be called add point. And in this instance, we actually want to return a vector2. And this is going to be called point position. Now we need to close it off. There we go. And inside of this, we want to, when we want to make a new line segment, we have to increase the position count. So if we go back here to our Unity, click on our brush object. And I think the reason this is screwed up is because I forgot to leave this at 1. So I'll leave that at 1. But for a position, in this case, position 1 is index 0. And if we want 2 positions, you have index 0 and index 1. And each one of these has a coordinate. And in our case, we're only worried about the X and the Y. And depending on where those are is where the line render is going to draw. So I'm going to convert this back to 1. and go back to my code. And let's figure this out together. So we want to grab our current line renderer and we want to increase the position count. And the good thing for position counts, it always increases by 1 if you want to do a new segment. So the easy way to do that is just say plus plus and close that off. And if you haven't noticed, I'm using C# coding. I don't know the JavaScript side of things. So with that being said, we have the current line position count increased. And now we want to use that. So we're going to create a new integer variable, position index is what I'm going to call it. If I spelled that right, position index. Okay, now we're going to set that as our current line renderers. And we want to use the current position of it. Let's see if we want to use the current position count and we want to subtract 1 from that. So now we can grab the current line renderer again, set the position to our position index. Oops. And this is going to be the point position. Okay, so I guess I did get a little sidetracked. I want to kind of clean this up, make it a little more professional looking. So all we did here was store this temporary player position variable instead of our create brush to the current object's position. So starting position of the game object stored as vector2. And all this does is set the first index of position 1. Set position as index. Okay. Set the first index of position of the player. And that's about the exact same thing here. Set the second index of position of the player. Position. There we go. That looks a lot better. So if this gets a little confusing, or if you guys have questions, I will try my best to answer them. So feel free to ask, or if you have suggestions, go ahead, throw them down in the comments. I always like to improve on what I do as well, so it does not bother me if you guys do that. So I'm going to, I already saved it. We have our create brush, and we want to put it in our updates at this point, but we can't do that just quite yet because we want to actually draw, right? So now we need to make a new function, and we're going to call this the draw method. Hopefully, once this is all put together, it makes a little more sense. Because right now I'm just kind of doing the building blocks of it. So inside of our draw method, we want to create a new temporary variable. And this is actually very similar to this guy here. So all I'm going to do is grab this and place this here. And this isn't the starting position. This is just the current position because this is going to be ran in the update function. So every frame or however many frames, it's going to be checked and it's going to see where it's at. And we're going to be using this to check a few things. So what we do here, we need an if statement. The if statement is going to say if the player position is not equal to a last position, put some more brackets in. We want to do add point. That's the function that we created down here. And we want to run that, so we're going to use the player's position. So this is all this is doing is checking if the player has moved. So if the current player's position is not equal to the last position that was checked, we want to add a point. So now it runs through this program here, or this method here, increments the position count, grabs the position index, and then sets the new position of the current line renderer. And then it gets returned the point position. And then at the very end of this, we need to set the last position equal to our player position. Because this would infinitely run if this never gets set back to this. So if you're moving your character and then you stop moving your character, that last position is going to be set equal to this. So this becomes true and this will no longer run. So that's what that is doing. So this is just checking to see if the player is moving or not. We want this to be adding a new line point for the line renderer. And this is just storing the current position of player into the last position variable for check. I could make these a little more understandable, but for quick and dirty, this is good enough. It's Cat. Hey, new here. How's it going, It's Cat? Where did you come from, the Discord, or did you just randomly find this video? So now that I have the draw method created, that's all that really should be inside of it. I am going to move this and actually run it inside of my update function. At this point, we should have enough to actually get something drawing. So I think everything's saved out. I'm just going to look at the console, clear it, see if anything's wrong. Nope, looks good. I don't want to maximize on play because I want to be able to use the scene and also the game view. I think you guys can see that. Took a while for a response left out, but I just randomly found it. Oh, cool. Yeah, sorry about that. Sometimes there's a delay in the chat. And also when I get focused on the scripting part of things, I lose focus of that as well. So that's also a very good possibility. But I'm glad you found the video, and I hope you enjoy what's going on, and Maybe you can learn something and maybe I can learn something from you, especially if I screw up majorly and you have a suggestion on how to fix it. So I'm always open for that. So at this point, we just have a generic uh, material on our brush prefab, which should get instantiated on our brush holder object, which is being done on the draw line. So let's see what happens when we run this. Saying out of bounds. Okay, let's just see what happens if we move this guy here. So all I'm doing is moving the brush holder object, and you can see that it's drawing all over, even though I'm getting out of bounds. And I think that's because it's looking for a vector 3. I could be wrong on that, which I could easily change that to. So let's just do that for giggles. See if it corrects everything. Do a vector 3. And I believe we also have this one here. We'll call this a vector 3. And let's see what happens. I got an error. Where is this error at? So last position needs to also be a vector 3. And at this point, I think everything else should be good. So I'll clear my console and double check this again. Still getting out of bounds. No, that's cool. I know what it's like to do that. I produce electronic music encode on the side. Nice. Hi, how's it going? Mind showing me what you got? Hey, Mr. Muffins, how's it going, man? And that is cool that you create electronic music. I listen to like a lot of chill step and lo-fi hop beats and things along those lines. And Mr. Muffins, I will show you what I got. While running this, if I click on the player object and drag it around, you can see I have now started drawing stuff. Eventually, I am going to... I'm fine, thank you. Good to hear, man. I hope you're enjoying your Saturday or whatever day it is there. It might be Sunday already for you. But currently, we're trying to create the line renderer object that will be drawing for us. And I do have a plan of attack. Plan of attack. So initially, we wanted to get a initial line to draw. And the reason we were doing this is because I am creating a Mario Party minigame remake. And the game I'm remaking is called Trace Race, which first appeared in Mario Party 4. And I'm going to just look it up real quick. Mario Party. I'm going to bring over the image of it. Sunday 2:25 or Saturday 10:25 p.m. Hey, that's the same here. I'm in Yeehaw, Ohio. So middle of nowhere, middle of everything. But anyways, this is what we're going to be making. It's going to be a four-player local multiplayer game. You have an initial line, you have to trace over it, and then it checks the accuracy, and whoever has the best accuracy of tracing over that line wins the game. So that's the goal. That's what we're trying to reach for. And hopefully we can do it. I am not in Ohio, but I guess we have the same time. Hopefully you're not like 24 hours ahead or something like that. That'd be kind of crazy. I guess it'd be the same day, huh? I just realized that the title was Remaking Mario Party Minigames. I thought it just straight up said games and you were making a Mario Party clone. That would be pretty incredible. But maybe after I do enough of these videos, I might have enough mini games and I can just slap together like a hub world and a little mini board or a little board game section and maybe we can do that. Or I might branch out into other stuff. I don't know yet. So hopefully this kind of goes to plan. But that's the reason why the very first thing I did in the video was make the initial art for the trace line, which I have here. Boom. And you can see Beauty looks exactly the same as the Mario Party version, but I included this beautiful addition. Hi. Laugh out loud. Nintendo can't wait for you to do so. I won't release it to the public. I don't want to be sued by Nintendo for that. Are you going to do a devlog series on this? I just might, or I might just stick with the streaming and go from there. It depends on how well this turns out. If the game is works well enough, then I'll do a devlog series on it. So that's what we have so far. Currently, the line render isn't working correctly because it's still behind. So if I look at my brush object, the clone is here and it's not being attached to my brush holder. So that's one of the issues there. So I need to fix that. So I need to set the parent to the brush holder object, which I figured would have, but for some reason it did not. I think a devlog would be cool, even if it does not turn out the way you want. You're probably right about that. It would probably kind of just help keep my thoughts in order on all this anyways. So right now, I'm actually going to look up how to set a parent. Set parent unity. So I use a lot of documentation still. I mean, I don't remember everything, and I've only been doing this for roughly a year now. So I don't have everything memorized or anything like that. So I use a lot of documentation, quite a bit. So I want to set the parent. This method is the same as the parent property, except that it also lets the transform keep its local orientation rather than its global orientation. If the game object was previously next to its parent, false, position the same way. Okay. So I should be able to use this to set the parent. I'm going to look at the example code. Child.set parent, and I need to grab... Okay. So I think I have an idea of how to do this. I want to set the instance. We'll see. We'll see if this works. It might just completely blow up in my face because I'm a fool. So we have the instance. Oh, what did I just do? Okay. I created the instance. So now I want the brush. What was that? What was this again? This was do the transform of it and set the parent. Okay. So we want the transform dot set parent. Sets the parent of the transform. And we want this to be game object. And this needs to be transform as well, I believe. No? Yep. There we go. So, how'd you end up doing, Mr. Muffins, on your game jam? What was your overall? Our team for Seal the Deal was 330th overall. I think we were around 100 for the music, and then everything else just kind of gradually got worse from there. So I'm going to run this code real quick just to see what it does. It doesn't hurt to try. Worst thing that can happen is it crashes and blows up, and we lose everything. 174. Congratulations, man. Kill Quaint was a really cool game. which I think was good for a first game jam. Yeah, that's super impressive. I mean, you're would what? Let's do some quick maths. So there was like 11,000 games, right? So if you got 174, so you were in the top 16% of the game jam. Congratulations, man. Top 15, sorry, 15.9. But yeah, check it out, Omega. See what you got. Go ahead and share it. I'm impressed by you guys. Kill Point was really fun. I enjoyed the uh gameplay of it. The music was good. Art was solid. So I'm glad you got what you did, man. Congratulations. Okay, so we're running this. We're still getting out of bounds stuff. Setting the parent of a transform which resides in a prefab asset is disabled to prevent data corruption. Okay, so can you do, can you set it as a child then? Is that a thing? Set child. How to make an object a child of another object. So let's go through here. I got 106th for music, which was got the best rating. Nice. I can't. Don't worry. I've already been screwing up a lot with all my typing in the scripts and stuff. So don't worry about it. You can use this through the object's transform.parent call and assign its parent the assigned transform. So this is the parents equals. Anyway, to undo that. Anyway, to undo the parenting. Anyway, undo the parenting. Interesting. I guess for now we'll just leave it as is, and off camera I might dig around the uh, okay, I saw a couple messages. Whoa, I'm number 6 for theme, laugh out loud. Other core categories are like 200, but that's fine. Awesome, man. Congratulations. Number 6. That's impressive. And do you have any games you released? Just curious if you have any games on any platforms, whether it's itch or stream. Yeah, I have a, I mean, they're not like, they're all free games that I've done during jams, but I can pull those up real quick. If you don't mind, this is the shameless plugs. Okay. So the last jam that I did was this Blackthorn Prod one. We did Seal the Deal. I'm not super proud of this one. I mean, I'm proud of it, but at the same time, I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time on it. The rest of the team didn't get a chance to work on it a whole lot either. So, end product was good for what it was, but we ended up spending more time on some of our other projects, like this one here, Plunging Platforms. If you have a gamepad, I would say download this and play it. It's pretty fun. Uh, some cringy voice acting for me, probably, but overall, pretty decent. Good music. Gameplay is kind of fun, and it's almost set up for speedrunning. And if you guys want, I can play stuff during these streams well if you have like recommendations. But I would like the focus on this to kind of stay towards the actual coding and making of the game. And another game that I'm really proud of is Through the Lens. This one is really fun. It's like a point and click adventure game, but the world looks beautiful except for what you look through a camera, and the rest, when you look through the camera, the world looks gross and nasty, and you see gruesome things. So this one turned out pretty fun. And Out of Sight was one of my very first games that I published for a game jam, and this one was fun. It looks very Tim Burton-esque, and I was just starting out really when I did this, and learned a lot from it. Turned out pretty decent. There was like 9 levels, so if you're really interested, go ahead and check them out. These all sound awesome. Also, congrats, Omega Falcon. Yes, indeed, congrats to everyone actually, because I mean, getting out of 100 out of 1,000 or whatever is pretty incredible. So nice work overall, guys. So let's get back to this. And since this isn't technically working right, I am going to remove that line of code and I'll do some more research. I'm just going to comment it out just so I remember my failures from later on. Nuggy Boy Adventure. Oh, I completely forgot about that one. So when I first started out making games in Unity, Mandalorian was becoming popular, and my fiance really loves the Green Boy, uh, Baby Yoda, Grogu, whoever you want to call him. So let's see if I can actually find that on Google still. I think it's still on there. So that was called Green Boy, boy with BOI, Green Boy and Nuggy Adventure. Here we go. I think I still have it. I posted it on the Unity forums. Still is popular. Yes, very still. Very, very popular still. So this was one of the things that I created at first. It used gyroscopic controls for mobile. If you really want to, I'm sure you could find it on Android. It might be hard to find though. If you really want to, you can try to find it through the Unity forums. That might be the easiest way. So I even created a website for my little indie dev studio, Snooty Snoot Games, but I haven't really done with it anything with it lately. But this is what it looks like. You're floating around in space. You're Baby Yoda, but in this case, you're actually Green Boy. And I don't know if you're familiar with the songs that have been put on YouTube, but they did a lot of Baby Yoda songs and like Chicky Nuggies, so chicken nuggets. So you're going around collecting chicken nuggets and also chocolate milk, and you're trying to avoid asteroids. It's just a fun little adventure. I was gonna improve upon this, but I've gotten busy with life and it's kind of fell on the back burner. So that's what it is. Also, Nuggy Boy Adventure reminds me of Big Chug PS4. I don't know what that is. I need to look that up. Hopefully it's appropriate. Big Big Chugga. Is that Chuggus? Chuggus. Big Chuggus. PS4. Big Chungas. Let's look at this. Is that legit? Yeah, I've seen the meme of this, but I didn't know. Is this like legitimately a game that someone made? Because that would be fantastic. I love it. Fat rabbit. All right. Well, I guess we better get back to this for now. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. So let's just check this again. When I play this, if I move the player around, it still draws. So it's currently using my brush holder position. So that's all that important. I guess it doesn't really matter if the brush clone is being created off on the side. It doesn't matter. We're using the position of the brush holder. So that works well. Blah, 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 blah. So I'll just say, we got it. We got what we need. It was never real. People tried selling it as other games at GameStop. No wonder game stock is plummeting. But I guess right now their stonks are going up. Big boy stonks. How did you make it not have more objects when drawing? Oh, okay, that's a good question. So, what I'm actually doing is inside of my script, if I go back here, if you guys can see it, when I am starting the world or starting the build, the first thing that it does is create a brush. And my brush is actually a prefab object, which I have stored here underneath my serialized field private game object brush. So I am creating a brush instance using that prefab. In that instance, I am grabbing the current line renderer off of that brush. So that line renderer is what we're using to draw. Line renderers are actually pretty powerful for this, and it's nice. So when I go back over here, you don't see anything. You just see my player, which is just a blue pixel, and then a brush holder, which is an empty game object with my draw line attached to it. And you can see the serialized field, I have a brush object, which is one of my prefabs. And if I go to the prefab itself, you can see the only thing that I have on here is a line renderer. Starts off at position 1, so index 0, 0, 0, 0. This all gets stored, or all gets changed when the brush is instantiated. So if I run this in real time, I'll show you what's going on. So right now, the script, what it did was it instantiated this brush. So over here in the model tree, you can see it was instantiated. And right now there's 2 index positions. If I move my player object around and I go back to my brush object, you can see it just created a bunch of new positions of the line renderer. And that's what's being used to draw on your screen. Oh, that's cool. I never tried anything like this before. I think I might use line renders more. Yeah, they're super powerful. And there's a lot you can do with it. So if I close this position, you can actually change like the width overall. So you can make it skinny and thin. If I right click and add a key anywhere, you can make it thinner in some areas. There's other things called trail renderers as well. Acts like a line renderer, but it trails behind an object moving around. So you can use that for like player characters. And when you're moving around the screen, you want a cool trail effect behind it. And then eventually that trail renderer has a time limit. So it's like particle effects almost, where eventually it just starts fading away and it follows the player object. And whatever position it hits, it follows that line. It looks really cool. I just discovered line renders a week ago. Wish I had earlier, because they are real cool. Totally rad, bro, right? So that's kind of what's happening here. So yeah, you can end up with those really cool shapes. You can do add multiple keys on your prefab object so stuff happens. And I mean, you can make it look real crazy. I think they're pretty cool. They're worth checking out. And if you ever seen like those mobile games where you draw a line across the screen, this is pretty much the technique they use. And if this video is too confusing, too much going on for it, there's a guy, I already promoted him earlier at the video. His name YouTube channel is 1 Minute Unity. He has a lot of close to 1 to 2 minute videos where he talks about how to do all this stuff, line render drawings. He's done like grappling hooks. He's done a lot of other things. He doesn't have a whole lot of subscribers either, so he's pretty new as far as I can tell. But it's crazy how he can get in with a minute and then there you go. You got it. So pretty cool. All right, guys. So we got it drawing. Step one accomplished. So I'm going to go back here. Draw a line real time in Unity. So this plan of attack is done. Boom. And I have these kind of switched around, so I don't want that one yet. I want to do user input as my next thing. Because, yeah, dragging the guy around is cool and all, but we want to be able so we can have 4 players eventually moving with a gamepad. I just discovered... Sadly, I have to go, but good luck with the minigame. Thanks, Mr. Muffins. I'm going to be continuing this for now. I want to be able to make it all the way through the game, creation of the game during stream. So hopefully on the weekends, I'll be focusing on this. So maybe you can stop in during then. And I plan on trying to get my streams a little bit earlier on these days as well to kind of help out with just timing schedule conflicts. And okay, I'm confused. Some of my messages are getting blocked. That is weird, cat. I'm not quite sure. I didn't think I had hold comments or anything. Let me check real quick. Change settings. It doesn't look like it can change the settings on the fly here. Sounds good, man. Well, I hope you have a good night and take care. I'm looking around. I'm seeing I can add highlights. I can share. Stream settings have moved. Click the edit button before or below to find all your settings in one place. YouTube does that automatically sometimes. Don't know if you can do much about it. I might be able to eventually change some of the settings before the stream. It's kind of what it looks like. So hopefully I can get that figured out. They are all about the text all the way at the top right with a white controller and blue background. They're all about the text all the way at the top right with a white controller in the blue background. Oh, okay. Are you referring to the Discord name? So the very top name, the Dinkelberg, that's my Discord name. So if you use Discord, that's where you can find me. You can add me as a friend. You can send a message. If I don't know like what you do, if you're an artist or game dev or whatever you are, but yeah, go right ahead and send a friend request and I'm all good for it. I don't have a server or anything like that, so it's all good. Okay, so I'm going to try to work on the user controller. I've been streaming for about 2 hours right now, so I am going to try to do this before I stop. If I can't make it, I'm going to find a good stopping point and then try to continue on from there. But I know what I need to do is go to my package manager. And inside of here, we're going to be looking for user input. And this always takes a while for mine. And I think I might even have to restart Unity. So before I get too crazy, I'm going to save my project, then do the restart. So with all that being said, now that I think about it, this is actually a good stopping point, but I'm going to show this process for everyone. And then on the next stream, I'm going to continue on and finish the input system. For whatever reason, the word ADD is getting blocked, and somehow I keep finding creative ways to avert that. Don't tear me, ma. uh, yeah, that is weird. I shouldn't have any restrictions or anything to the chat, so I need to see if there's like a filter on it. I know YouTube has like potentially harmful chat text and stuff like that, so I'll look into that and see if I can clear those out. I mean, I'm not a very big channel or anything, so as of right now, I really don't need any of that. And I mean, I try to keep it pretty chill and vibing in this type of atmosphere, so hopefully we can figure that all out together. But anyways, back to the input system. If you don't have it inside of your system yet, inside of your Unity, all you need to do is go to your package manager and look for input system. And all you need to do is install it. And we're going to be using this over the old input system package, because old input is your typical input dot get key down, all that stuff. What input system does is actually make it so we can easily map controls. It's kind of like a overface or an above level structure where you can set whatever keys to whatever you want or create like functions and then map keys to them. So it actually works out pretty well. It's a little confusing, but I think we can make it work. All right, thanks. It's no problem. I just am noticing because they aren't spawning on stream. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty new to streaming. I just started last weekend, and I hope eventually to keep on doing this because I enjoy doing it, and I hope I'm showing people new stuff, and eventually, people who join in, I'm hoping they're coders and artists and stuff as well. So maybe they can help critique everything, and I'm always willing to learn more. I'm just a game dev hobbyist, and I primarily focus on programming, so that's why I kind of understand this a little more. But I try to wear all hats and stuff, and eventually it'd be kind of nice to see what other people think of what's going on the screen. Maybe they have more efficient ways of doing things, and overall, I kind of want to make this I want to put the coding environment into a more professional manner and show things off better that way. Okay, so we're getting a warning here. This project is using the new input system package, but the native platform backends for the new input system are not enabled in the player's settings. This means that no input from native devices will come through. Do you want to enable the backends? Doing so will restart the editor and will disable the old Unity Engine input APIs. Yes, we want this. Omega Falcon, do you know a way to do the on key down and on key up with the new input system? Because not being able to do that is why I keep going back to the old system. I actually do know how to do that, and eventually I will actually show you how to do that. But do you want to save the changes you made in the scenes? Yes, I really want to save those because we would lose everything and that would suck. But I need to go for a bit. Have a great stream. I have notifications on, so if I'm not back, I'll see the next one. And that's awesome. And I sent on the blue-white controller. All right, sounds good. I appreciate you stopping by. It's Cats, and I'm actually getting pretty close to ending the stream. I just want to show this new user input process of getting it started and being used. And once Unity restarts, I'm going to save everything out and then say the final goodbyes, and then hopefully have another stream set up for tomorrow, or I'll continue it on next Saturday. I want to do these Let's Codes in a little bit larger chunks, just because there's always so much that goes into even little prototypes like this. You need bigger blocks of time to work on them, and I think that's going to be the most appropriate way of doing it. So maybe during the week I'll do 1 or 2 streams, playing like other people's games, doing reviews on those, and then on the weekend I plan on doing the Let's Codes. You can see Unity is trying to update because it's restarting. We're just going to skip that. We don't want to do anything with it. So I feel like this has gone pretty well. This is the first time I've done one of these Let's Code streams. And I hope you guys enjoyed what we've done so far, and I hope it has made sense up to this point. I know I was a little scatterbrained at first, bouncing in between different functions and what they were doing, but I hope the explanations I put worked well. And at this point, it looks like it's restarted and is showing what's going on. The input system should now be installed and ready to be used. So I'm going to double check to see if it's actually in our project settings. So I guess I should show you how to get there. Go to Edit, and then Project Settings towards the bottom. Inside of here, you'll have on the left-hand side different tabs you can go to. We want to use the Input Manager. If you look here, this was the old one. This is the old input system package, which was using like the get access roles and then the mouse buttons, get inputs, get key downs, all that stuff. So if you were using the old one, that's where this would be. And I believe if we go to, what is it? Player. If we go to player, other settings. Yes. So if you go to the player tab, other settings, and underneath our other settings, inside of it, you have active input handling. So if you select this, you can actually see that the old input manager is still there. You have input system package new still here. Or if you want to use both, you can use both, which means you can use analog controls easily with the new input system and then still refer back to the old input manager to do like button down presses if you want to go that route. I'm going to try to show everything inside of the new input system package. That way people get more familiar with it, because it seems like they're going to be phasing out the old input manager. Eventually, that's just going to be completely gone. And then if you don't know how to use the new one, you're hosed. So I'll focus on the input system package new. I enjoyed the stream. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it. Thanks. Thanks, Falcon. And of course, I'm always open to feedback. So I mean, I could try to add some kind of like royalty-free music in the background, or change up the overlays a little bit so it makes it cleaner and easier to see. Try to figure out if the audio has been okay as well. So I'm going to try to do all of that stuff. I want to make it as enjoyable of an experience as I can for you guys, because I'm having fun and I want you guys to have fun too. And hopefully we're all learning together. So with all of this being shown, at this point, this is a very good stopping point. I've been doing this for 2 hours at this point. We have, if I play the game, just kind of a refresher of what's going on. We have the ability to create a brush object, which is attached, or using our player's position, we can draw around with it. And the next time I stream, I'm going to be showing how to use the new user input system to control our player with a gamepad. And then we're going to be one step closer to being able to create Mario Party's Trace Race. So with that being said, I want to say thank you for stopping by. And I appreciate every one of you stopping in, leaving comments, engaging with me, saying what you think about this, and also letting me see big chunks, because that is a hilarious meme, and I love that people actually try to sell those games back to GameStop. So with that all being said, guys, I appreciate every one of you stopping by, and thank you. I hope you stay safe. Have a good night, good morning. Be safe. Thank you.